What's up, YouTube? So today you guys may have noticed that we've been pretty quiet for the last few weeks, and that's partially because I've been really busy at work. I know Danny's been really busy at work as well, and you know, that's just the way life goes sometimes. I haven't been hunting as much as I would like. And that's partially because I was planning a trip to Wisconsin. I've been planning it for a little while. I really wanted to get outside of Florida and do some hunting, see what all the fuss is about. I was really looking forward to making a really cool video of me killing some huge buck while up in Wisconsin. But that's not what happened. We saw a lot of deer. I could have shot several different deer. But I kept waiting for a bigger one. So this was the first deer that I saw on this trip. It was actually the first hunting day, the first afternoon, about 4 o'clock. This little 6-point started making its way down the trail. And as you can see, I was really positioned right on top of this trail, which I don't really like to do, but there was sort of a lack of climbable trees. So I just kind of sat right on top of the trail, thinking that anything that would get downwind of me on the trail would already be shot if I wanted to shoot it. So this buck came down, and as soon as I saw it, I realized I wasn't on a meat hunt anymore because I didn't grab my bow. Anyway, you see him, he gets here to about like 5 yards from me, and he suddenly looks up and he realizes something doesn't quite look right. I don't think he really figured it out, but something didn't look right, so he turns and he goes another way. So, I mean, obviously I could have shot this buck on several occasions. Right here, he gives me a nice opening to shoot him broadside. He's still kind of wondering what happened, and here he kind of says, you know what, something's wrong. I'm out of here. So he takes off, going down that trail. And I mean, this wasn't really like a panicked gallop. He just kind of trotted off. So that was pretty exciting. That was the first deer sighting. Probably about an hour later, this little guy came running underneath me. He just ran right past. You can see him up in the top left corner going down the trail. And I didn't really get a good look at him, but I tried to mess with him a bit. So I blew my horn just to see if he would respond, and he kind of looked back, and that was about it. And then the next morning, this little spike came out, and when I first saw this deer walk out, I saw how tall it was, and I thought to myself, this is a nice buck. And then its head popped up, and I saw those tiny little spikes. In hindsight, I realized I actually could have shot it because it would have counted as a doe, because the spikes are so short. But clearly, this deer, he gave me plenty of opportunities to shoot him, and I let this one walk as well. So, definitely plenty of opportunities to shoot, but that's not what I was trying to do. And on the second to last day, me and Ben found two giants, in the 250-pound class. They were huge. I saw one of them from about 150 yards away. Ben saw one from about 300 yards away. Then about 5 minutes later, I actually had a nice buck walk out, but it was pretty far away from me. I'd say it was probably, I think it was about 50, 60 yards away. It was getting a little bit dark. If it was 50 yards and it was pretty light out and I could see it really well, I would consider taking the shot, because it was a pretty big deer, pretty big target to hit. But I just didn't feel comfortable pulling the trigger, so I let it walk, and the next day we set out to try and intercept those giants that we saw. Our plan worked really well. We set up on a point that we thought they would come through the next day, and we did in fact have a whole bunch of deer come through the area that we had picked out. But it was after dark, and we just sort of watched them pass by, and then spotlighted them before we got out of our stand. And that was the end of the hunt. But we did learn a lot, and we know for a fact that we're going to be going back next year. It was a really awesome hunt, and I thought I would share with you guys
a little bit about my experience and some do's and don'ts about hunting out of state if you're a Floridian. Because as you guys are probably aware, we have very different weather here in Florida than people have in different states. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I packed for this trip, what really worked out well for me, and what did not. The first thing was getting a tree stand, something to hunt from. I wanted to be as mobile as possible and be able to climb any tree, so I wanted to have a hang-on stand with sticks. Not the stackable sticks, but the non-stackable ones. So you can pretty much climb any tree that you want. Ended up picking out some Millennium stands. They were pretty comfortable. And the muddy Aerolite sticks that we could get from Walmart, and they were available for pickup. So we sent them to Walmart. We picked them up when we got there. That meant that we didn't have to pay for extra luggage fees to get our stands there. We didn't have to pay to ship them up there. We just bought them there, had them there to use, and unfortunately we just didn't really like the stands that much, and we decided to return them at the end of the week. Next part, of course, is bringing all of your stuff. Now, so a lot of people will advise you to buy some of these really heavy-duty travel cases. Well, they're like $200-something, and I was not willing to do that. And I thought that this case would do the trick just fine. It's the one that I already had. And it really did work out quite well. I'm going to show you how I used it. If you need a different option than this, if I was buying a case again, I would buy this one made by Plano. It's sold by Walmart. It's like $30. It's actually significantly wider than this one. You could really fit 2 bows in it if you wanted to. But it meant that we had that there's a lot extra space for other things. So Ben actually ended up buying that one and using it, and I really wish I had that one too. So first things first. When I open this, you'll notice it's actually full of clothes, and I have not unpacked from this trip at all. So what I actually did is I took all the padding out of my bow case, and I replaced it with all the clothes and things that I needed. This is just, sweaters, my pants. I've got so these are aider straps that I made to use on my sticks so that I could get a little bit higher if I needed to. And they actually worked out great. I was able to get myself an extra 6 to 8 feet higher in the tree, and that was wonderful. This is all just camo clothes that I use while I'm in Florida. This is like a balaclava that I bought on Amazon for like $8. This thing was great. You can cinch it tight so it covers your whole face. It was super warm, $8. Great buy. I'd suggest everybody buys those. These gloves, they're the pop top ones with the magnets. They were great, but I'm not gonna lie, the only time I really needed gloves was one day when we sat in the pouring rain, and my hands got really cold, and I really needed these gloves. I don't really like wearing gloves when I'm bow hunting because it makes the release, if you're using a wrist style release, it makes the release sit on your wrist a little bit weird. So I wasn't a big fan of these. What I did instead is I actually got hot hands, hand warmers, pocket warmers, and I would just put those in my pockets. Keep my hands in there during the day, and that was keeping my hands plenty warm so that I could hunt without gloves on. I did have these little glove liners. They're nice and thin, and those are fine. I didn't mind wearing those very much. Got my estrus doe peas, all useful stuff. So it's really important that you put all the things into this case that you cannot take as carry-on, because this is the only checked luggage that we took. So all my knives and my saw, this little saw right here, I got it from Lowe's for like 29 bucks. It's called a Corona razor tooth saw. I will tell you, this is probably the most crucial thing that I brought on this trip, because it allowed me basically to climb any tree that I wanted. Getting a couple limbs out of the way. Also, your thermal underwear. I brought 2 pairs of both thermal pants, and somewhere in here, I don't know where they are, a thermal shirt. I actually ended up wearing both of them at the same time underneath my camo, and I was incredibly comfortable. So definitely don't forget those. And one thing I noticed, I brought way too many clothes with me, like normal everyday clothes, because what ended up happening is we would hunt all day, and then at the end of the day, we just want to drink a beer and go to bed. So I ended up having all these clothes that I never used. So don't pack too many clothes, because you're probably just going to wear your hunting clothes like 99% of the time. I think while I was there, I wore 2 different outfits of normal clothes, and that was really just because I felt like I needed to wear them. I would have been perfectly happy recycling the same clothes again and again, because you're only wearing them for a couple hours a day. Anyway, so I removed some of my my clothes now, and as you can see, we're down to my bow. So, and my bow is super padded by having clothes both underneath and over the top. Now you notice my bow does not have its sight on there, because I have a dovetail style sight, and I did take the sight off of the bow because this will protect the sight while it's traveling, and all I have to do is slot it back in there and screw it down at the setting that I had it at, and that's no problem. And the only thing about that is you're going to want to test your bow when you get to where you're going. At Walmart up north, where there's a lot of hunting gear in Walmart, they sell really cheap archery targets that are like $15 for the styrofoam one. We just bought one of those. We shot our bows on the first day to make sure that they were good, and they were fine even with the dovetail setup. Taking it off and putting it back on, it was totally money when I shot to test it out. Also, I think this piece of clothing right here is probably the most crucial clothing that I had. This is a Columbia PHG jacket. Now, Columbia doesn't seem to get a lot of publicity in the hunting world, because they're really known for their fishing clothes. But PHG, Columbia PHG, is a really, really good brand. They make awesome stuff. I have their pants as well. They're super comfortable. I wear their shirts. And a really cool thing, one of my shirts, I forget where it is. If you look up the Blood and Guts 3 woven shirt and pants, the weave on them is so tight that mosquitoes actually cannot get through them. And here in Florida, you know that is incredibly important. Got my arrows in here. I did not put them in the arrow holders because I really don't need to. I can just tuck them down there and they won't get bent or anything like that. Got my box of broadheads right here. This is obviously you cannot put in your carry-on. So that has to go in your case. And then right here, this is some bullshit. Sorry. Here I have my Moley strap system. Now I brought this because I've done a video before saying I have a really bad shoulder, and it's really important for me that my straps are comfortable and that I can carry them, that I can carry my stand easily. And funny thing was, I got there and the stands that we got, which was the Millennium M100U, actually had a good set of straps on it, and I didn't end up using these. So I probably won't bring those on the next trip. Notice there's a few items missing. Some of the gadgets that we use, like your rangefinder, the stabilizer for the bow, you know, a lot of the ratchet straps, my camera arm, things like that. All the heavy stuff, my camera. I actually took my hunting backpack with me as my personal item. I clipped my camera arm to it. I've got my water pack in it. I've got I actually had it ready to hunt so that when I got off the plane I could actually just go straight into the woods and hunt. And then I also clipped my small case that has cameras in it to that. And then finally I had a carry-on little suitcase, and I put a bunch of stuff in there as well. One of the things that I brought along, that one of the local hunters, actually they have a YouTube channel too. You should check it out. It's called Behind the Bow. And they're Wisconsin public land hunters. Really good guys. They actually helped us find some interesting areas to hunt. So those guys are awesome. Check them out for sure. He told me that I should bring my waders because it rained a lot and the swamps were pretty high with water. that was definitely true. And those waders were super comfortable. I actually hunted with them on one day while it was raining. I just wore them, my jacket over the top, and I was in like a little cocoon. It was awesome. So if you're going to a place that you know is really swampy, bringing waders is not a terrible idea. I actually, the rest of the stuff that went in my carry-on was like my quiver and, the stabilizer and things like that. All the chunky, hard things that are heavy that you don't want to carry on your back, and you don't want to taking up weight in your suitcase. But also, you don't want them clunking against your bow if they do toss this around. I should have shown you right at the beginning. Once I got to the airport, I put fragile stickers on the outside of my bow case, and then I got 2 TSA locks to lock up my case. And those TSA locks are really important because basically it makes it so that TSA can open your case and look in there to make sure that everything is kosher, which is obviously really important to them because you're carrying a bow case, which is a weapon, even though they don't consider it a special item. And for the last thing, we did not bring guns with us because taking a gun costs $150, or at least on Delta it does. It's a special item. It costs $150 to take your gun. But of course, where we went, there's a lot of bears. We didn't see any bears, so that was good. But you can get bear spray wherever you're going for like $15 and carry that around with you. And there's actually a lot of publications that have shown that bear spray is far more effective with bears than guns are, because bear spray has a much wider spread, so it's a lot easier to hit your target. And they actually have a much further range than you would expect. So consider that. That's how I'm going to do things again next year. And it's a great way to save space, save money, and make one of these out-of-state hunts attainable. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I just wanted to share sort of some of the things that I learned on this trip. So duck season's starting up pretty soon, and we should have a lot of footage coming up soon. I'll be out at STA 2 and 3, 4 the first weekend of duck season. So I hope to see a bunch of you guys there. If you recognize me, if you're a follower of the show, come say hi to me. Chances are, sometimes we're gonna have a spot open on quotas, or we need an extra guy for our group. So we'd love to hang out with some of you guys and do a little bit of hunting. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in to Swamp and Stomp, and we'll catch you guys next time.